Hello everyone, welcome to Wind Down Wednesdays. I'm your host Paula Taylor and this is episode 134. So tonight we are going to talk about the anatomy of expansion. And of course this topic came to me from something that was happening in my life. I'm going to tell the story of that. But I want to just kind of reiterate because these topics tend to build on each other and we get into these, I don't always call them a series, but we kind of get into this sort of flow of episodes that kind of build on each other. So I've been talking for the last at least month or so about how the energy that's coming in from the cosmos is increasing. Two full moons ago, not the one just this weekend, but the one a month before that, there was a huge influx of energy. And this full moon, there's always a big influx of energy at the full moon. And so we've talked a little bit about what that means. When this huge influx of energy comes in, we have a choice. Are we going to integrate this energy, which requires expansion, or are we going to kind of run away? Are we going to be fearful about it? And in which case it can sometimes knock us down. We can get sick. We can get overwhelmed because we're not ready for that influx of energy. We don't know how to integrate it into our current field. And we've talked about fears. We've talked about transitions. So what do I mean by an influx of energy? We're going to talk about the actual energetic anatomy of that tonight. But just from a practical perspective, I am talking about big transitions in your life. When this big energy comes in, it tends to really shake things up. So it can affect relationships. It can affect your work. I'm moving to a new business location. That's a big change for me. You can have changes in the family. You can have changes even in kind of your relationship with yourself and how you feel about yourself. It can start bringing up some old things that you thought that maybe you had healed, some old traumas that you thought you had moved past, or can stir up new, quote unquote, new traumas you weren't previously aware of. There's a lot of practical ways this affects us, which is why I talk about this. The whole reason that I teach about energy work is because it is practical. It absolutely affects our lives. It affects our health on all levels of our being. So this process is increasing. These influxes of energy, I don't know if that's the right plural. These influxes of energy are going to keep getting more and more and more intense. We are building to an even bigger shift. And if you talk to anyone who does a lot of energy work or who's in touch with kind of intuitive information, we are all getting this similar information that there's a big shift coming that's going to start anywhere in the next year to 4, 5, 6 years. And I think it's going to start in the next year and then kind of keep increasing. So how do we deal with this? Well, we deal with this by learning about energy, by learning about what does it mean? How do I deal with this? Because the problem is if you don't understand the energetic component of it, then it makes it all the way through your field and it starts giving you physical symptoms. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Let me go into my story to illustrate this because it's a little bit abstract. And then we're going to talk about what does this mean from an energetic standpoint and how do we maintain this? Because this is kind of how this came up for me this week. So during that full moon, that was about a month ago, I had this huge influx of energy. I had this huge expansion, and I talked about in the last few episodes, all of a sudden I started connecting with Archangel Michael, who I then found out had been kind of my guardian angel through my whole life, but I wasn't in an expanded enough state to connect with him for a long time. I shut that down as a child, as many, many of us do, because we're scared. We don't understand it. We're told by others that it's weird to have this intuitive information or this psychic connection, whatever words you want to use for that. So I had this huge expansion. And sometimes what happens, just naturally, we've talked about this kind of awakening process in terms of birth. So sometimes you've got this big expansion and then this contraction. We're in labor, right? And then this big expansion and then this contraction. And then we birth something, right? And then the baby's here. And we did a whole series about spiritual awakening where we talked about sometimes after an awakening, there's this like period where it's kind of the postpartum period. There's a little bit of almost depression or kind of a feeling of a letdown, because like I was so expanded and then I'm back into this contraction. And some of that is natural. There's a natural flow there. But I had a really interesting experience this week that really showed me how to maintain more of this expansion so that we don't kind of get into that period quite so much. And again, there's always going to be ups and downs. That is kind of the way life works. That's the way energy works. But if we understand how to work within those waves, even, we can make even the contraction feel more expansive. So I had this big influx of energy. I was feeling really expansive. This space fell into my lap. I talked about that in last week's show. I'm not going to go into the details, but this new business space, the way I put it is that the universe gift wrapped it in and placed it in my lap. This big expansion was happening, and I was like, feeling really expanded and feeling really good and feeling really confident and in that really amazing vibration of love and awakening and expansion. And then I got to the part, that sort of postpartum and as often happens after a big expansion, it does stir things up. It stirs up some fears. We talked about a lot of that last week. These kind of old fears come back up, and it's like, okay, I got to look at these. And sometimes there's a period of denial. So that stuff was going on. But I was also just feeling a little bit off because I dealt with the fears. I looked at the fears. I worked through them. I released them. I felt like things were good. And so I was a little bit confused about why I was feeling off. And whenever I feel off, here is a tip I wish I had known many, many years ago. When you feel off, you need to check into your energetic system and physical system to see what's happening. When you feel off, that is a message that something is off somewhere in your system. And I'm using the word off because it's not always really obvious. It's not like I was in pain. It's not like I was having physical symptoms. I just felt kind of off. A lot of times it's an emotional state. It's this kind of feeling like, something's not quite right and I don't know why. And sometimes that happens because there's feelings that we're suppressing. And so as we start to excavate, as we start to bring awareness, then we can figure out what's going on. And we've done a lot of that over the years. The multiple years that this show has been going on. So I was feeling a little bit off. It was kind of an emotional feeling or like an energetic feeling, like something's not quite right here. So I started kind of scanning through my system. I started in my body. Is there something off in my body? Is there some part of my body that's not feeling right physically, but also energetically, because energy flows throughout the body? I was like, no, everything feels pretty good in my body. I had been doing some sessions with clients. Sometimes we pick up energy, no matter how skilled we are, no matter how careful we are. That's part of the nature of being a professional energy worker, is that we sometimes pick up energy. So one of the reasons you scan through is you're kind of looking, is this my energy? Is this different? What feels different here? I've got actually a really kind of funny medical analogy to make here. So I was an ultrasound tech for many years. Now I work as a breast health navigator for imaging. So I tell women their breast biopsy results. And so what we tell women is to do a breast self-exam once a month. And they will tell you, do your breast self-exam at the same time each month, because your hormones actually change your breast tissue. So they usually tell you to do it right after your cycle ends. That's a consistent way to kind of remember. Also, your hormones are kind of in a little bit more, it's more conducive to kind of feeling less change. As your hormones increase throughout your cycle, there's more change in the breast. And the reason you're supposed to do a breast self-exam every month, obviously, is to look for cancer. But every breast has lumps and bumps. That is how glandular tissue feels. So the purpose of doing a breast self-exam is to get to know your breast, so you can be aware when there's a change. You do your breast self-exam every month, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, I didn't feel this last month. This feels different. So you're not just looking for lumps and bumps, because all breasts have lumps and bumps. You're looking for changes in the lumps and bumps. You're looking for something that doesn't belong or something that feels different. That is what I'm talking about with this scanning. So I scanned through my body. Nope, everything feels like me. There's nothing in there that feels different, because that's one of the ways you can identify that you've picked something up from someone else. Everything felt like it was flowing. Everything felt pretty good. It felt like my normal kind of flow. So then I checked the fields around my body. I was like, no, everything feels good. Everything's flowing. I don't understand why I feel off. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute. I need to check further out in my field. And it dawned on me all of a sudden. And first of all, as soon as I did that, I found a bunch of schmutz, a bunch of gunk. We'll talk more about that. But it occurred to me that because I had had this big influx of energy that I chose to integrate, that I chose to accept, my field got bigger. And so the area of my field that I was used to checking is not big enough anymore. My auric field, we'll talk a little bit about the anatomy of this in a minute, has gotten bigger. And so more of this area around my body is mine. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. And so I need to look further out. And when I did that, it was like, oh, yep, there's a little thing I picked up there. Oh, there's a little like schmutzy gunk there. Oh, there's something there. And as soon as I cleared that, which we're going to do in our meditation tonight, I felt like a million times better. I felt like a weight had been lifted. My emotional state shifted. It was really amazing. And I thought, oh my gosh, I wish I'd realized this years ago, because this is how we maintain expansion. Is to, first of all, recognize the expansion, integrate it, own it, and then realize, have the awareness that it's now part of our energetic system so that we can maintain that. Because energy, just like your body, everything requires maintenance. So I've got to do work on my energetic fields to keep it flowing, to keep it from being stagnant, to release things that are holding. And that is how we maintain health. Physically, that is how we maintain health on all levels. So let's talk a little bit about this anatomy and what I'm talking about and how this affects the physical body. Because I've said this before, I'm sure, but I don't know that I've said it often or how long it's been. Any kind of dis-ease or disharmony in the body starts way out in your energetic fields. And because most of us aren't even aware that that is part of our system, we're not paying attention to that. And so it kind of creeps its way into your field, and eventually you start getting physical symptoms, and then it's like, oh, there's something wrong with me. And a very big caveat here, a very big but, is that we've talked about this a lot on the show. Healing does not always equal curing. So there are some things that we have, especially physical challenges, but any kind of challenge we have, sometimes we have agreed to that challenge as a karmic contract, as a contract, a soul contract. I agreed to be infertile before I came into this body. I still firmly believe there is nothing I could have done to fix this. This is not something that started out in my field and made it into my body. This is something that was just part of the way I was made. So just because something is quote unquote wrong with you does not mean that it has made its way into your field this way. But a lot of times it does. And here's a really good example of this. If you talk to a lot of people who do a lot of work with energy, they will tell you that they don't necessarily get sick very often. And that is because a lot of times we can feel that making its way into our system, our energetic system, when it's still way outside of the body or when it's just barely getting to the body. And sometimes you can do enough energetic clearing that you essentially dispel that dis-ease, that illness, before it makes it all the way into your body. Again, can we always do this? No. Does it mean if you got sick that you failed in some way? No, absolutely not. It's just an example of how sometimes this works. And I can tell you that for many, many years, anytime I felt that I was getting like a cold or a respiratory illness, I would start clearing, just literally like waving my hands around in my energetic field, especially in front of my nose and my face, kind of wherever that respiratory illness came. And I would kind of push things away. And if you're listening to the podcast, it probably sounds like I'm out of breath because I'm doing all this crazy movement. And a lot of times I would never get sick, or I would get a little bit under the weather and then it would leave. And I worked at a clinic for a lot of years, and like lots of people in the clinic would get sick, and I would like feel it coming on and I would be able to clear it. So this has real world applications, absolutely, for any kind of disease, physical disease or illness, but also mental and emotional things, because what happens to all of us, whether we are aware of it or not, is that we're picking things up as we go out in the world. So let's talk a little bit about this anatomy and kind of how this works. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to clear, and then we're going to do a meditation for clearing that auric field tonight. So you've got your body, your physical body, and your physical body has its own energy centers. We've got the chakras, which we talk about really often. It's a fairly familiar concept now in the Western world, these centers of energy in the body. You've got meridians. That's a traditional Chinese medicine viewpoint. I was just talking to someone about this yesterday, and they're meant to flow in a specific direction, and you can get stagnation and holding. You can get any kind of basically lack of flow in any of these areas and all of this energy that flows through your body. And for most of us, we are not fully embodied. And we do that work all the time on the show. I don't usually use that word embodied. What does embodiment mean? Embodiment means that your energy is fully occupying your body. That is the energetic definition of embodiment. And most of us are kind of floating around in the headspace. We talk about that all the time because we live in the headspace. We live in the mental space. We're using our brain all the time. And the analogy I always use is like we've got this beautiful house with 3 floors and a basement, and we're living in the attic, and we've forgotten that we have the rest of the house in that basement down there. So the first step of kind of occupying your energetic space is embodiment, is bringing your energy down into your body, there is a reason we start with that in almost every meditation, because everybody needs practice on that. I do that professionally for a living, and I still need practice on that because of the way our society is created. We don't have a good connection to the earth a lot of times. So that's kind of this first level of energetic anatomy is the energy within the body. And there's all sorts of words for that and ways to look at that. We're going to keep this really simple. So the energy within your body needs to occupy your body fully. I remember years ago I was working with someone, and he was working kind of with the back of my body, and he was trying to get me to bring my energy out and occupy fully kind of the back part of my body, like around my glutes and my low back. And I remember, he kept saying, nope, come further. And I was trying to push my energy out. And I remember, he just had his hand on my skin, and I was like, it's further than that. It's further than that. And then I remember saying to him, I occupy that much space. Like there's that much space in my body. So most of us are not even expanded fully within our own bodies. That is one of the big reasons that I do trauma release with people, because what trauma release does is that it contracts us within our own body. We don't feel safe, and we hide and we contract. And so we're not even occupying our own body. So that's kind of the first layer of this energetic anatomy. So then beyond the body, I can see my etheric body right now. I'm getting excited. When people get excited, their etheric body gets big, and it's cool to watch if you can kind of see it. So just around the body, there's this layer of energy called the etheric body, and it's typically just a few inches beyond the body. It can expand up a little bit, but it typically occupies just a few inches around the body. We're not going to get really deep into what these layers are, because honestly, it doesn't really matter. Energy is energy. Yes, some of this is mental energy, some of it is emotional energy, some of it is spiritual energy, some of it is physical energy. It's all energy. You work with it the same way. So beyond the etheric body is what I call the auric body, or the aura. And again, some people will tell you there's a bunch of layers to the aura. We don't need to worry about that. We're going to keep this simple because it doesn't matter. If you want to learn this professionally, maybe it does. But as a layperson, as someone who's just trying to work with their own energy, energy is energy. So the cool thing about the aura, but the thing that most people don't realize, and the thing that can be a little bit overwhelming, is that it has the capacity to expand infinitely. People who astral project, they're traveling through their own aura. So from a very sort of quantum cosmic kind of spiritual view, we are all one. So all space is my space on a cosmic level. On a physical level, that's not really true. On the level that we are experiencing reality in this physical body, there are separations of space. At the quantum level, no, like everything's one. But that is not really how most or probably all of us experience life. Every once in a while, we're going to talk about that. You might. But for the most part, we're walking around in kind of bubbles of energy. That's the easiest way to think about it. And what happens when you're scared is that your bubble shrinks, right? Sometimes your bubble shrinks down so much that you're not even occupying your body. We just talked about that. So as you start to heal, as you start to work with energy, as you get excited, as you get passionate about things, as you say, I'm going to claim my light and I'm going to let it shine, that bubble starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So when we have a really transcendental experience, when I have these visions, and I've had some really amazing experiences in my life, drug-free, which we've talked about. I was just talking to someone yesterday because she and I had been talking about psychedelics, and then we were both like, neither one of us needs that because your brain produces those chemicals. You just kind of have to train your brain. And a lot of that is trauma release. There's no space to expand when you're too afraid to expand, when you're contracted. So when you have a really big transcendental experience, some people might even call it an out-of-body experience, those are the moments when your aura really, really, really expands. And I had an experience I talked about in the introduction of my book where I expanded to the edge of my capacity to expand. And I met this beautiful golden light of divine love. And I think that your capacity to expand is limitless. Like maybe now I could expand even beyond where that was. But from a kind of a daily perspective, most people's auras are kind of hanging out a few feet away from their body. If you get really excited, it might be like 6 to 12 feet. You're kind of occupying the room that you're in. Let's say I'm going to take a quick sip of water. So most people are kind of occupying just the area maybe just around their body, maybe even further out as they get excited. As you train, you can get further even than that, again, infinite. And so what happened to me recently is that I accepted this influx of new energy. Well, when energy comes in, it has to have somewhere to go. So once you get to the point where you're expanded into your body, you start expanding beyond your body and you fill up that etheric body, and then you fill up that auric body, and then the auric body itself starts to get bigger. So what I realized this week as I was having this kind of experience was that my auric body has gotten way bigger, my natural state, my normal state. So think of it kind of like you have a resting heart rate, right? You've got a resting heart rate, but then sometimes, you're working out and your heart rate goes up. But then it kind of comes back to its resting state. So you could think about the auric body in those terms. You have this resting auric body, and everyone is a little different. But as I said, for a lot of people, it's just a few feet outside the body. Well, I work with energy professionally for a living. So my resting auric body, I would say up to recently was probably at least a good 10 to 12 feet around my body. That's what, like when someone walks up behind me, like I know they're there because I can feel a change in my energy if I'm paying attention. I mean, if I'm distracted enough, I don't. But especially, if I'm in an energetic awareness state, it's like, oh, yep, somebody's coming. I talked last week about how my massage therapist walked up behind me, and I like from about 15 feet away, I was like, oh, who's back there? And it was him walking toward me. So that's because I have this kind of expanded auric field, and it's part of I think it's part of my physical body. Again, there's some semantics here with terminology, but like energy is physical. So if I can extend my body 15, 20 feet out, like, yeah, no, my physical, my arms, I'm not like Inspector Gadget. My arms don't go out that far, but I can have awareness just like I would if somebody was right here, that somebody's entering that space. And that can be very helpful. It's interesting that many of us who've been through trauma have this kind of freeze and fawn response, which is that contraction, because actually the bigger you are, the more protected you are, because you're going to notice things when they come from much further away. And that holds true for things like illness as well. So that example of this story, so I went from, I would say, maybe having like a 10-ish foot auric field recently to having maybe more of like a 20 to 25 foot auric field. Like I really got big. But then you've got to maintain that. So what happened was I had this extended field, but I wasn't really maintaining that extra 10, 15 feet outside my body. I was just, because I'm used to being in a smaller space. So, think of it as like, so if I was only in my attic and now I'm on the first and second floor, I might forget like, oh, I got to clean the bathroom on the first floor because I'm usually like just sitting up in the attic. I kind of forgot it was there. I have access to it, but I'm not used to occupying that whole space yet. So I was feeling off. I know that means something's going on in my energy somewhere, whether it's in the body, in the field, whatever. I did the scan through the body. That felt good. I did the scan through that, maybe 10 to 15 foot field that I'm used to having. Everything felt good. And then I was like, well, what's happening here? Why does something still feel off? And then all of a sudden it was an intuitive awareness. It was like, check further out. You're not looking far enough. And the interesting thing that happened is that as I went into this little more contracted state, I lost touch with Archangel Michael again. And I was like, oh, I just found you. And where did you go? And I can't hear you. And we were having such fun together. As soon as I expanded myself back out into that extended space, there he was like, hey, I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting. I'm here. Like, for whatever reason, I cannot connect with him unless I'm in this newly expanded space. And the cool thing is that eventually it won't be newly expanded. And it won't even feel expanded. It'll just feel like my space. But because it's new to me, I wasn't looking out far enough. I wasn't maintaining myself out far enough. So when I started to check, it was like, as I said earlier, it was like, oh, there's a little schmutz here and there's a little crud here. And so let's talk a little bit about what that means. And then we'll get into the how do we clear that stuff. So you can pick that stuff up from anywhere. A lot of times when it's that far out in your aura, it is something you've picked up. In my case, I do a lot of one-on-one sessions with people in person and virtually. And when you are working with someone in that way, and here's something that it's important to understand, because this happens whether you're in a professional energy work setting or not. When you are in close contact with someone, whether it's physically or just in the same room, or you're on a Zoom call, even something like that, your energy becomes enmeshed. And if you've got a really extended energy field, that means there's a lot of space there for like people to come in and out and things to kind of get picked up and stuff like that. That's why it's important to do things like clearing. And I just used a house cleaning reference, so we'll stick with that. If you never cleaned your bathroom, it would be really, really, really disgusting. And everybody has a different level of comfort with like what disgusting means. There's people who, there used to be a show about OCD on like, I think it was the Learning Channel. And, there's people who like scrub their grout with a toothbrush, multiple times a day. And then there's people who like never clean their grout. And then there's everybody in between, right? So one of the parts of this process is recognizing, what do I need to do to maintain my space to where it feels good to me? How often do I need to scrub my grout? How often do I need to just scan through? How often do I just wipe the counter of my bathroom down? Maybe I do that pretty often. And then maybe, a few times a year, I really get in some crevices with the toothbrush. And then, how often do I clean my toilet? All of that stuff applies to this idea of energetic cleaning and clearing. And we've done multiple episodes where we've kind of talked about clearing, but we've never really done, I don't think, an auric clearing. So just like any other energetic clearing, there's lots of different ways you can do this, and you want to find something that calls to you. Sound, I'm always going to say, I love sound. That's a great way. I've got a big, beautiful bowl here tonight. This is the one specifically that asked to be here for clearing. So we're going to use that. Some people like to smudge. I mentioned recently I don't smudge much because I have asthma, but I got some beautiful Palo Santo and I use that. I smudge my house. So you can smudge your body. There are people, especially in the indigenous culture, medicine people, shamans, they will oftentimes smudge themselves constantly, the people they see. There is a reason that smoke is considered to be ceremonial and clearing. So you can smudge around your body, you can smudge your space. Reiki is amazing for clearing. If you are trained in Reiki, you can use your Reiki symbols if you're a level 2 or beyond, but you don't have to be trained in Reiki to set intention. I clear this space with love. So we're going to use that a little bit tonight. There's a lot of different ways that you can clear. Movement is great for clearing. I was talking about how when I felt like I was getting a respiratory disease, I would start sweeping my hands pretty vigorously around my auric field. Kundalini yoga, the whole point of Kundalini yoga is energetic cleaning and cleansing and clearing. So they do a lot of repetitive motions. There's one where you kind of breathe up as you raise your hands up in the air, and then you bend over and let your hands fall behind you as you breathe out. That is specifically for auric cleansing. You are cleansing the area around your body. You're just clearing it. So movement is great, and it doesn't have to be prescribed movement. If you're new to this, that can be really helpful. But just setting the intention, I clear, and kind of flapping your arms around, waving your arms around. You know, you can use crystals are great for clearing. I don't have it here because it's in my office. I have a beautiful selenite wand. And on after sessions, a lot of times I will go through people and kind of seal around in the auric field just to kind of, it's basically like sweeping. So you can use a sweeping motion with your hands. You can use a crystal that calls to you. Sound is amazing for clearing. I had a really interesting, I've noticed I have this great practitioner bowl that I have at my office. And sometimes when I go to ring it at the end of a session, it like won't ring. And I was like, what's going on with this? And I realized I was working on someone yesterday. There was so much beautiful energy and vibration in the room that the bowl didn't have the physical space it needed to vibrate. So when we started the session, before I barely even touched it, it was like really singing. And then as we went through the session and we were clearing and we were making this energy in this room so harmonious and expanded and clear and beautiful, there was so much vibration in the room, and I had done a halide activation, so there was a lot of sound vibration in the room. When I went to ring the bowl at the end, it was like, I don't have space. There's so much vibration around. I can't actually vibrate, which I thought was really a very cool physical sign of the fact that vibrations are a physical phenomenon. We cannot see them necessarily. We can hear them. That's one of the reasons I love sound. You can hear the sound of a vibration. You can see a vibration if you go and drop a pebble into a lake and you see the kind of waves coming out. That is how vibration works. So regardless of whether it's sound or light or, energy, vibration is clearing. So movement of vibration is clearing. Intention of vibration is clearing. Lots of beautiful ways to clear. I'm probably forgetting something, and then later I'll be like, oh, I should have mentioned this. But lots of beautiful ways to clear. Intention, one of the easiest. Sound, one of the easiest. I recorded an entire kirtan that is just meant for clearing. It's called Ong Namo, O-N-G, second word N-A-M-O. You can get that anywhere. You can get it on Spotify and Apple. Play it on repeat. That's one of my favorite ways to clear a space, especially, but that also works for your body. Energy is energy. So playing some crystal bowls in the background, playing that kirtan that's meant for clearing, playing a song that makes you feel buoyant. It doesn't have to be quote unquote healing music. If there's a song that just makes you puts you in a really good mood every time you hear it, that song is clearing for you. It's lightening the load. So when we find this kind of schmutz crud, whatever you want to call it in your vibration, what is that? It's just a little bit of disharmony. And some people might call it darkness, but I don't necessarily like that term because again, we need all vibrations. We need light, we need dark. We want clear vibrations. So it's a little bit of muddiness. It's a little bit of disharmony. It's something that's not aligned with what makes you feel good in your body, in your field. And there's no judgment around this. That doesn't really serve us to judge these things. It serves us to just release them. And especially when you're working way far out in that auric field, you usually do not, this is not like a deep trauma release from the body, because by the time something makes it into the body, it tends to be pretty ingrained and it's harder to release, and it tends to bring up harder emotions because it's been there a long time. It was a big event. It was something that really affected us. When you're working further out from the body, a lot of times you can, like I saw that stuff and I was just like, no, thank you. And I just kind of waved my hand. No, thank you. Just a little brushing motion. We're done. Thank you very much. Just like if I saw a little pile of dirt on the floor, I might just sweep it up and throw it out. That's it. And always the intention for the highest good. I feel that this isn't serving me. I release it for the highest good. Anywhere you feel that. So just quickly before we get into the meditation, what are you looking for? How do you feel this? Because this can be a really subtle practice, but you will feel something. And just like anything having to do with energy, your intuition is always going to be right. Listen to your intuition. And you are going to receive information differently than maybe other people do. Like to me, I can see it in my kind of third eye in my mental space. Like I could see, I called it schmutz because it was like, a little black spot on a mirror. Like, ooh, I just need to kind of polish that out there. So sometimes you can feel a quality to this. It feels dense. It feels heavy. It feels different from the area around it. Think about this kind of breast self-exam. Oh, this lump wasn't here before. What is that? So you're looking for something that feels different from the area around it. Some people, you might notice like a hot spot or a cold spot. A lot of times when we're working further out in the aura, what it comes through as is this feeling of kind of a lack of energy, like there's a hole there or even like a leak. Sometimes people purposely are sort of pushing something away because they don't want it to come into their field. There's some sort of trauma that they pushed all the way out of their physical body into that energetic space. So what you're looking for is just anything that feels a little bit off to you physically, mentally, emotionally. If you're kind of scanning through and you get to it and you're like, ugh, I got kind of a weird feeling here. That's a place to do some clearing. And how do you clear? I'm going to give you multiple options tonight. Start with intention. The other thing to keep in mind is if you ask something in your energetic field what it is, it has to tell you. Somebody told me that years ago and I was like, God, I wish I'd known that earlier. So if you find that little schmutz there and you say, what is that? It has to answer you. It is part of your field. So, when you're dealing with something like, let's say you've pushed trauma away and like, oh, there's this big, dense, heavy thing here. And you say, what are you? Usually you'll get some sort of an answer, and it might be real weird and vague, oh, I'm a fear, or I'm anger, or I'm rage, you might just get a general feeling of an emotion. You might get oh, I'm black, I'm dark, I'm oily, I'm thick. Any of that stuff is useful because then it can help you know how to clear. So like if something is black and oily and thick and I just brush at it with like a broom, it's probably not going anywhere. I need like a vacuum or something to pull it out. So within this, there's some nuance, and the more you practice this, the better you'll get at it. But just to begin with, there's something that feels a little different here. I set the intention to release. I set the intention to fill that space with love and light for the highest good, because that's the other thing. When you release something, it leaves a little bit of a vacuum, of a hole, of a space. You want to fill that intentionally, because if you don't, some other little schmutzy thing is just going to fill that space. So as we're clearing, we release, but then it's a two-part thing. You can't just release. You have to also call in that love, that light, that expansion to fill the space, because you want to fill the space intentionally. You want to fill the space with that frequency that's resonating with love and joy and bliss, so that you don't have to keep going back and finding these little places. And the more you do that, the stronger your field gets. And it almost becomes, it's almost like you got like a little Roomba in there kind of checking things out. And that's another thing that kind of happened because I have this expanded space. You know, if I take my little Roomba into a brand new house, it doesn't know where the barriers are. So it's going to have to kind of re-explore. So anytime you have an experience where you feel like you've let something go, or you're growing, or there's a discomfort, you're stepping out of your comfort zone, that is right away, you're going to know that you've got to start paying attention to this space kind of further out from your body. So let's jump into the meditation. I will talk you through it. This is going to be one that you're probably going to want to repeat. If the visualizations don't call to you, don't worry about that. Just use intention. You can use your own voice as a great way to clear. And it does not have, you can sing a song, you can hum. The intention is the important part. If you're not comfortable with that, a lot of people love, having a little chime, having a little bell, buying yourself a little bowl, something that feels, you will know when a sound is sacred. You will know. You will know that this is a sacred sound. You will feel that vibration and it will call to you. And everyone is a little bit different. So let's meditate together. So for this meditation, you will want to be sitting up if at all possible. And you may want to have space to move your arms and hands around. If that's not accessible, that's okay, but that can be a really helpful tool, especially if you're new to this clearing of this energetic field, of this auric field around your body. So to start with, as we almost always do, let's do 3 to 5 deep oxytocin breaths. Beautiful way to clear, inviting the body into relaxation, clearing away stress, clearing out that fight, flight, or freeze. So taking a nice deep breath in through the nose, letting the belly float out. Using that audible ha sound, that vibration of sound right away is beginning to clear, not only within your body, but around your body. So do that 2 or 3 more times. And as you notice a little bit of a shift here into relaxation, that is an energetic clearing right away. Coming out of a space of tension or contraction into a space of expansion and relaxation is due to clearing energy, opening space for that relaxation to happen. So just scanning through the body briefly, noticing any areas of tension and discomfort, maybe gently doing some range of motion, just really gently. You don't want any kind of even really discomfort here, just a general light feeling of stretch, of release, maybe shrugging your shoulders, moving your head and neck around a little bit. Maybe you shake your hands. That's a great way to clear. And if you shake your hands up and down around the outside of your body right away, you're already getting into the auric field. And we've done this before, this shaking. If it's not accessible to you or it doesn't feel good, that's okay. You can set the intention to shake. We're going to do a little bit more movement. So if that didn't call to you, don't worry about it. Just checking back in with the body here. Taking a nice deep breath in through the nose, drawing that beautiful love and light, that divine flow of energy all the way down through the torso, into the belly and the hips. Sighing that breath out, sending the energy down your legs, into the knees, down the lower legs, into the feet. Let's do that again. A nice deep breath, drawing that energy down through the top of the head, through the torso, into the belly, and then breathing out, sending that energy down through the legs, all the way down to the feet and into the earth. Just starting to feel connected within the body here, occupying your body. Maybe place your hands on your thighs and just kind of gently rub up and down your thighs. And you might notice, oh, I forgot this part of my body existed. So maybe take a nice deep breath, sending some energy into your thighs, into your hips, down into your knees. The further away we get from the head, the less embodied we tend to be. Sending some energy down again into the shins and the calves, the lower legs. Maybe you move your ankles and feet a little bit. It's bringing some awareness. And then getting really anchored to the floor here, feet on the floor or bottom on the floor. And right away, we've already done some beautiful clearing of the energy within the body. Maybe you feel a nice flow kind of down through the head, up from the earth, connected to that beautiful support of the earth and that beautiful flow of divine energy that comes in through the top of the head. So now moving out just beyond the body, that etheric body, just about 1 to 3 inches outside of the body here. I just notice what you feel here. Maybe you feel nothing. Maybe you're not sure. That's okay. Maybe move your hands kind of right around, especially in the head space. You'll probably feel a little bit of something and come down around the legs again. Just noticing, do your hands feel like they're sticking anywhere? Is there a nice flow there? Maybe you feel a hot spot or a cold spot. Using your hands with intention here is a great way to start to recognize some of this subtle energy. I just went over my heart space and there's a little hot spot right over my heart space. So when I feel that, then I might want to pause for a moment and just check in. Is there something there that would like to be released? Is there any holding there? Is there something that's calling for my attention? And as I asked those sort of questions, I actually felt something in my belly release physically. So as you kind of clear and move energy, your physical body will thank you for this. So just very gently kind of feeling around this etheric body. We're not going to spend a lot of time here. Just inviting in some flow, just kind of clearing. You can think of your hands here as little brooms, as little vacuums, as little sweepers, just kind of sweeping through this energy. Anything we release here, we release for the highest good. You can send it down into the earth. You can send it to a healing station, as my friend Agnes used to say. Just noticing here and then coming still for a moment. And again, noticing the shift in your energy. Maybe your body feels a little more relaxed. Maybe you feel a little bit of a sense of movement kind of within and around the body. You're tapping into that beautiful flow, that fluid flow of energy. And now bringing your awareness further out from the body. And the first thing I want you to do, and again, you can use your hands for this, that might help, especially if you're new to this, is to just kind of feel out from your body and get a sense for where the edge of your energy is. And it might just be a few feet or even inches beyond that etheric body. You might feel maybe you had kind of a tough day, a tough week, and things are a little contracted and you feel like you're kind of pushing on an edge. That's okay. Let go of any judgment there. When you reach kind of the edge of that, just start to sweep gently down that edge. Don't forget about the back of your body. If you're watching this video, you see my hands are kind of out to the side, but you can do this. You want to do this in the front. Remember, your body exists in 3 dimensions, so it's kind of hard to get your hands behind your body, but you can use your fingertips. You don't have to use your hands for this at all, but it can be really helpful, especially if you're new to this, to start sensing. And just as you did in the etheric body, maybe start feeling around. Notice if there's kind of any areas of heat or cold or anything that feels kind of stuck. If your arms start to get tired or you start to feel like you don't need them anymore, you can just rest them in your lap, put them on your heart. You can put them together in a prayer position. You might feel your hands heating up. That's that beautiful universal life force energy, that Reiki flowing through into your hands. You don't have to be attuned to have that beautiful flow of energy. So just scanning out now, maybe even a little further. What you'll find sometimes too is as you clear your field, you make room for more expansion. So as you sweep through your field, you invite your field to expand. Also, actually important to note, as you start to clear, you may have some physical symptoms. You may start to cough a little bit, as I just did. Your throat might start to get tight. You might feel some tightness in your chest or belly. Your eyes might start to water. So anything that happens here, you might yawn. That's a really common sign of release. Just let that happen. Just work with it. Take a few deep breaths if you need to. And then come back to your scanning further out, seeing if you can get out to the edge of the room that you're in. Notice, what does it feel like along the edge of the room? And just continue doing this work. You can use your arms if you want. We're going to introduce some intention and some sound to help you. Be intuitive with this. Get out as far as you like. When you find, maybe you find a really dense spot where there's some stuff happening, so pause there and set your intention there, and if you're using your hands, a lot of times your hands will know intuitively what to do. Maybe they're going to do a little bit of gentle stroking. Maybe there's a jagged edge somewhere. Maybe there's a hole and you're kind of sealing the hole. Whatever comes to you here, your intuition knows what this needs. Your body, your energy, your soul wants this to be a big, beautiful, expanded space. You want to claim that light and let it shine. You want to step into the divine service. And the bigger and more flowing and beautiful your field is, the more effect you actually have on the physical realm. The more you will be seen and noticed. And that can sometimes bring up fears, but that is why we do all the trauma release work we do as well. So continue working with this. I'm going to state some intentions here. You can feel free to repeat these or just allow them to come into your field. I'm also going to send some beautiful Reiki into your field to help you with this expansion, to help you with this clearing, to help you find any areas of your auric field that need a little bit of extra love and attention, to release any of that kind of schmutz or crud that's clinging to those outer edges of your auric field. You can hear the beautiful vibration of that bowl, that wah, 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 wah. That is clearing. That vibration is clearing. So as we let this sound come into the space, I set the intention to release anything that no longer serves me. I clear and cleanse the energy within and around my body with love. I release any judgments that come up about my energy, and I easily release that which no longer serves me. Coming to the end of your clearing here, filling this space around your body with this intention to release with ease, with love for the highest good. Checking into any little crevices, any last sort of corners that need a little bit of attention. And then, as always, when we do any clearing, when we do any release, we want to call in new, fresh, beautiful, loving, divine energy to fill that space. As we release, as we clear, we open up space and we fill that space with divine light and love for the highest good. Clarity, harmony, serving that expansion of our beautiful light of our auric field. Oh yeah, 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 oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, ooh. Say yeah, yeah, say yeah, oh, say yeah, say oh yeah, 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 yeah. Say yeah, say yeah, say calling in beautiful light, unconditional love. Filling that beautiful space around your body with this love, with this light, this clear, expanded, harmonious vibration. Filling all of that beautiful space around your body as far out as you can reach here. And know that as you come back to repeat this, that area will expand. And your feeling of lightness, of bliss, of joy, of love will also expand. Coming back now to that etheric body just around the physical body, calling light and love into that space for the highest good. We fill our space with love for the highest good of all. And then finally, again, calling that beautiful light and love into the physical body, filling the whole body all the way to your fingertips, all the way to your toes. Don't forget about that belly, your cave, this dark space we tend to be afraid of, we tend to overlook. Fill that with love and light and joy. Fill it with this beautiful light that is the source of all. It is your true nature. You are light and love, and you are filled with that light in body, in spirit, to shine your light for all the world to see. As you're ready, let yourself come still if you were moving. Coming back fully into the body, affirm with me out loud. I am fully present in my body. I am fully present in my body and I occupy it joyfully. I am fully present in my body and expanded beyond into my energetic fields with joy. The space within and around my body is clear and light. It is expanded and harmonious. Take 1 or 2 more deep breaths here, sighing out any last release, maybe moving your body again, just slowly coming back here. Noticing the shift, not just in the body here, but in the space around your body. Noticing the lightness, clearing that space around you, inviting in harmony and light and love, clarity and expansion for the highest good. As you're ready, you can wiggle your fingers and toes. This is a great meditation to do in the morning to start your day, or before bed to clear anything you've picked up. But you might find when you do this clearing, it actually gives you more energy. So just experiment around with that. If it feels good to do this before you go to sleep, absolutely do that. I would recommend doing this type of practice at least once a week. Clearing that space, just like you clear and clean the space in your home, cleaning and clearing in your body, around your body, maintaining this beautiful love and light will serve you on all levels of being. Take one last nice deep breath if you'd like, and as you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I will be taking a few weeks off at the end of June, and I will give you a heads up, but I will be here next week. So I will see you next week for Wind Down Wednesdays. Have a beautiful, clear, light, expanded rest of your week.